Hello and welcome to another client story. We're bringing you these client stories in association with the 50 years that we've been in business. And the story this time is about the Pegler family, who were graziers out at Quilpie. Quilpie being around about 950 kilometres directly west of Brisbane. The Pegler family have been clients of ours for greater than 50 years. And the reason for that was it goes back to the days when livestock accounts used to be necessary to finalise income tax returns. The livestock accounts were a peculiar calculation that was needed to account for the natural increase and get a closing stock value of the herd at the end of the period. That calculation now is all done by computers, so having an intricate knowledge of how livestock accounts works these days is not that necessary. So Beryl and Edwin Pegler were very good clients of ours back in those days. And one of the things that they used to like to do was whenever they left Quilpie and came into Brisbane, they'd find a nice restaurant to eat out at. So back in those days, not too many restaurants around in Brisbane. On one occasion, I can remember, and it sticks in my memory for a number of reasons, not least being the first time I ever went out to a fine restaurant. So Beryl and Edwin took the whole family out to the Centenary Pool restaurant up there on Gregory Terrace. Those were the days when there were no children's menus. So it was quite an experience for me seeing how fine restaurants worked. The other story I'd like to talk about is Don Pegler. Don Pegler was very much ahead of his time. He wanted to improve the quality of the fleece that he was getting from his flock of sheep. So what he used to do was he used to measure the microns, or the crimps in microns, to gain a better quality fleece from his herd. And his reasoning for that was that there were times when there was an oversupply of wool, and with the oversupply hurt the mid to lower end of quality fleeces. So what he was trying to do was produce wool at the higher end and so avoid being hit by the downturn in price of wool when there was an oversupply. So he had this notebook where he kept a record of the animal through the ear tag number, and also he would measure the fleece for its size of crimp. More crimp being the softer the wool and the more desirable, so that's what he was chasing. All that information was stored in a notebook, and that was around about the time that I was looking at portable computers for use in business, and he cottoned onto the idea that it might be good to put his records for the sheep onto a computer, which would make it easier for him to get information out on what sheep he wanted to keep and what sheep he could sell. So he eventually did buy a computer, battery powered, because it was out in the paddocks that he was doing all the measuring and entering the data. And to do that, there was no such thing as an off-the-shelf software package to record that data. So he wrote his own software. So not only was Don ahead of his time in his thinking about improving the quality of the fleece that he was producing, but he was also ahead of his time when it came to how he was keeping that information on computer. So that ends the story, client story for this time. So I look forward to bringing you another one shortly. Goodbye.